Prior to serving as America's 46th president, Joe Biden had a 44-year-long career in national politics. 36 of those years were served in the Senate and 8 as vice president. During this time, 8 different men served as United States president. Biden's Senate career began in January of 1973. That month, Richard Nixon was beginning his second presidential term. Biden was a Democrat and Nixon a Republican. As Biden was just beginning his life in politics and Nixon was a senior politician of the opposition party, they had little contact. Not to mention that Nixon's second term was less than 2 years long. However, Biden and Nixon did interact directly at least once. In December of 1972, Biden's wife and daughter were killed in a car accident, weeks before Biden was scheduled to take office. The following day, Nixon phoned Biden to offer his condolences. During the brief call, Nixon noted their shared experience of starting political careers at a young age. Biden was taking office at just 30, while Nixon had first entered the House of Representatives at 34. Privately, Nixon acknowledged Biden's political talent. He admitted that had he personally campaigned in Delaware for Biden's Republican opponent, it, quote, wouldn't have changed one iota. Nixon described Biden as, quote, just a damn good young candidate. In his 2007 memoir, Biden didn't reflect positively on Nixon, mainly citing his opposition to Nixon's handling of the Vietnam War and his opposition to the general values and interest that he felt Nixon represented. There's little known about Biden's relationship with Gerald Ford, if one existed at all. Ford only served as president for 2 years and 5 months, and Biden was still a freshman senator. In his memoir, Biden simply lumped Ford in with Nixon while stating his opposition to their Republican administrations. In the 1976 presidential election, Biden favored Ford's Democratic challenger, Jimmy Carter. Biden and Carter were more than just fellow Democratic politicians. During Carter's presidential campaign, Biden was the first elected official outside of Carter's home state of Georgia to endorse him. Unlike other presidents of the era, such as Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, or Ronald Reagan, Carter wasn't a nationally known figure when he ran, so Biden's endorsement carried weight. After staying at Carter's home in Plains, Georgia, Biden liked what he saw. Quote, I saw Carter as a necessary transitional figure in the Democratic Party, which was losing middle-class working Americans. I thought Carter could bridge gaps in the party. He also cited that Carter was, quote, progressive on race, combined with the fact that he was a Southerner, his measured approach to the war on poverty, and his willingness to negotiate with the Soviet Union. However, Biden was disappointed with the Carter presidency, believing Carter didn't have the political savvy to get things done. He said Carter was always an outsider and never fit in with the Washington politicians, to his detriment. According to Biden, Carter's dislike of political culture was so strong that at times Carter even seemed aloof around him, despite their background. Nevertheless, Biden maintained a respect for Carter, and the feeling was mutual. The two visited each other occasionally over the years, and in 2020, Carter endorsed Biden's presidential run. When Carter turned 100 in 2024, Biden honored him with a celebratory video statement. Carter also requested that upon his death, Biden deliver his eulogy. When Ronald Reagan took office in 1981, Biden was serving his second term in the Senate. Biden still wasn't prominent enough to be the leading Democratic voice against Reagan. However, the two interacted on multiple occasions, and the interactions seemed to leave both men with negative opinions of the other. Biden saw Reagan as divisive and dangerous, claiming that Reaganites had pitted, quote, whites against blacks, management against labor, the middle class against the impoverished. At times, he even took the Senate floor to speak against the administration. Reagan was well aware of Biden's opposition to his agenda. In the same year Reagan's first presidential term started, Biden became a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and subsequently became a key figure in scrutinizing Reagan's judicial nominees. He objected to many of these appointments, believing they aimed to undo the, quote, expansive vision of individual rights, which Biden credited to the Warren Court of the 1960s. Reagan privately derided Biden and his allies' behavior on the committee, comparing them to a lynch mob. In 1984, Reagan was running for his second term as president and Biden for his third term in the Senate. Reagan tried to persuade Republican Governor Pete DuPont to run for Biden's seat. Both Reagan and Biden would ultimately win their elections in landslides. In 1987, Biden launched his own presidential campaign. Reagan wasn't impressed. Quote, "Some talk about Senator Biden, now candidate for president. I saw him on CNN last night speaking to the John F. Kennedy School at Harvard University. He's smooth, but pure demagogue, out to save America from the Reagan doctrine." Little is known about the relationship between Biden and George Bush. Had Biden won his party's nomination in 1988, he would have faced Bush in the general election. However, Biden dropped out of the race even before the Democratic Party primaries. His political power, however, had grown. Throughout Bush's presidency, Biden was no longer simply a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, but was its chairman. In this position, he oversaw the controversial confirmation hearings for Clarence Thomas, one of Bush's nominees for the Supreme Court. In September of 1989, Bush delivered a televised statement explaining his plan for the war on drugs. The Democrats followed it up with a statement of their own delivered by Biden, who argued Bush was only taking half measures. He also opposed Bush in foreign affairs, advocating for the disarmament of Ukraine to ease regional tensions following the collapse of the Soviet Union. He was against the Persian Gulf War as well. Decades later, their relationship seemed to have warmed. Following the death of Biden's son Beau in 2015, Bush, who was in his 90s and wheelchair-bound, insisted on meeting with Biden to offer his condolences. Biden recalled this moment following Bush's death in 2018. Referring to him as a man of class and decency. In the same statement, he also praised Bush's leadership following the end of the Cold War as being of, quote, historic dimensions, and saying, quote, so much could have gone wrong, but instead went right because of his leadership. From 1973 to 1993, Biden had only got the chance to deal with a Democrat in the White House for 4 years. However, from 1993 to 2001, he had 8 years to work with Democratic President Bill Clinton. Biden met with Clinton in the White House during the first few months of Clinton's presidency and was quickly left with a positive impression. Quote, Clinton was the most talented politician I've ever seen, Biden later wrote. Quote, the quickest study and one of the best informed. He took the job seriously. Moreover, I believed he had good instincts. The two had political differences, mainly in regards to foreign policy. For the most part, however, Biden was one of Clinton's biggest supporters in the Senate. The two met in person at numerous points throughout Clinton's presidency and worked well together. In 1994, Clinton signed into law the Violence Against Women Act and the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. Biden had been a strong proponent of both. During the 1999 trial to impeach Clinton, Biden stood by him and compared the trial to a, quote, partisan lynching. Clinton and Biden have maintained a relationship over the years. Clinton was also one of the first public figures to endorse Biden's re-election bid in 2024. When George W. Bush took office in 2001, Biden was serving his 5th term as senator. Biden recalled they'd first met shortly after Bush won the Republican nomination. They were seated next to each other during an event and spoke cordially about their willingness to work together in the event Bush won the general election. Biden was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee through much of Bush's presidency, and they met on multiple occasions, which often left Biden impressed. Bush, according to Biden, wasn't the most knowledgeable on many issues, but had keen instincts and greater intelligence than many gave him credit for. Biden also praised Bush's willingness to ask questions and acknowledge gaps in his knowledge, even when doing so meant confiding in members of the opposition, like himself. Biden claimed that his greater qualms were with some of the men Bush surrounded himself with, such as Vice President Dick Cheney and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. He was disappointed to see Bush frequently take their advice. After the attacks on September 11, 2001, Biden, as a senior Democratic senator, emerged as a leading voice for unity and bipartisan support for Bush in dealing with the aftermath. He supported the subsequent invasion of Afghanistan and the Iraq invasion 2 years later, even going so far as to harshly condemn anti-war Democrats. However, over time he became more critical of Bush's Middle East agenda, especially during Bush's second term. When Biden ran for president in 2020, Bush did not support him, nor did he support his Republican opponent, Donald Trump. However, Bush was quick to congratulate Biden on his victory. Of all the presidents Biden worked with, his relationship with Barack Obama was the most distinct. After 36 years of interacting with presidents as a senator, he served with Obama as vice president. Obama began his first term in the Senate in 2005, while Biden was serving his sixth Senate term. Biden had actually competed with Obama in the 2008 Democratic Party primaries and was dramatically outshined by Obama, a man who was nearly 20 years younger and with only 3 years in the Senate compared to Biden's over 30 years. Biden got their relationship off to a rocky start with a statement that seemed to stereotype Obama for his race. Biden made an apology, and Obama accepted it. Months later, Obama selected Biden as his running mate, and they went on to win the election. As vice president, Biden played a key role in overseeing Obama's 2009 Recovery Act. Obama also leaned on Biden's foreign policy experience, tasking him with overseas trips and meeting with foreign diplomats. The nature of their relationship has been debated. While the two have boasted about their closeness, there have always been suspicions of some tension. Many believe this stems from cultural differences. Biden's old-school political style of backslapping contrasted with Obama's more modern, polished approach. Additionally, Biden's tendency for verbal gaffes and occasional crudeness was starkly different from Obama's deliberate and refined demeanor. Obama had reportedly become so frustrated with Biden during the 2008 campaign that during a conference call, he blurted out, quote, "How many times is Biden gonna say something stupid?" They also had policy disagreements, such as Biden's opposition to Obama's 2009 surge of troops in Afghanistan. Furthermore, when Biden ran for president in 2020, Obama was slower to endorse him than many expected. Nevertheless, there have been many signs of good faith between the two, such as the numerous tasks Obama delegated to Biden, a privilege presidents don't always afford their vice presidents. Obama also surprised Biden in 2017 by awarding him the Medal of Freedom, and Obama did ultimately endorse Biden's 2020 presidential bid. The two have since met in the White House during Biden's presidency. After Obama, Donald Trump served as president. Biden didn't have a working relationship with him as, for the first time in 44 years, he wasn't serving in an elected office. However, Biden was consistently critical of Donald Trump, condemning his policies, competency, and rhetoric. In 2020, Biden succeeded in challenging Trump for the presidency, winning his own term as president. If you enjoyed this video, consider browsing the channel for other videos on United States presidents all the way from George Washington to modern presidents, discussing their political careers, personal lives, and places in history.